what do we want?
All illusions aside, what do you really want? That is like such a simple question and such a big question at the same time.
Courtney, this is so big.
Psychotherapist and mindset coach Karla Elizondo is challenging our narrative.
We don't even allow ourselves to not only ask ourselves the question, but take time to sit down and actually write what we want.
Expanding our awareness.
We don't like truth. We're addicted to illusion.
And helping us come to terms with our separateness. Is the real authentic self that oneness? Is that real authentic self, that God self?
Yep. Yes. And we're afraid of it. We're horrified.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers starts now. Hi, Karla. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. I am so excited and happy to talk to you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and like I said right before we jumped on, I'm going to just let you talk because I love the sound of your voice. You have such a beautiful voice, so I'm really excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. So I know you are a psychotherapist, and I know you deal with, helping, clients really find their purpose in life and things like that. And that's a lot of what this podcast is about, is especially for women, really trying to understand who we are on an authentic level, find our voice. And I've talked about this before, and I've gone through therapy before that, a lot of times we're asked these things like, what makes us happy or what do we like? But one of the conversations I've heard you talk about, or one of the questions I've heard you talk about is what do you want? That is such a simple question and such a big question at the same time. What do we want? So I kind of think that's a big topic that we can jump into today. I'm just trying to understand who we are. How do we understand what we want?
I know. Well, that's the starting point of all achievement, as Napoleon Hill says. I am a huge fan of that book. And it came to me later in life, but really upon studying it, because I was a fan of Bob Proctor. He was my mentor for years until he passed a couple of years ago. But I love all personal development mentors. I love Les Brown. I love Tony Robbins. I do not discriminate. I think all the message in any way and shape and form it can get out is good when it comes to self-discovery, personal development. But it all stems from, what do we want? What do we want? And, if you've ever sat in seminars and they go, write what you want, get a piece of paper and pen. Even me as a psychotherapist, I deep eye roll. It's like another journaling prompt. It's but why are we resisting it? We don't even allow ourselves to not only ask ourselves the question, but take time to sit down and actually write what we want. And I still find myself, when I allow myself to go there, it's my imagination and my programming and all the limiting beliefs, I could hear that voice but all the paradigms come out of why it can't happen. And I'm whoa, wow. Can I just sit here for a minute and allow myself to really think about, feel into, and put on paper what I want? No guilt, no shame, no judgment, no, but how is it going to happen? Because if we don't know what we want, where the hell are we going? What are we doing? Why are we getting up? We're just drifting, as Napoleon Hill says in his book, Outwitting the Devil, which is amazing. It's you're either a drifter in your life and you feel lost. I sure was one for 25 years of my life. And that breeds anxiety and fear and depression and purposelessness and feeling lost and disconnected. We're drifting, or we're headed somewhere with confidence, with faith, with purpose, with meaning, with connection. And so that's a great place to start. What do you want? What would you love?
Well, you said so many things just now in that statement. Talking about the shame, the guilt, the how, but then also the drifting and the lack of purpose and the faith in something bigger. And I mean, there's so much in there that makes the question so big, I think, that it's almost like daunting to even admit to ourselves, like, what do we want? Because a lot of times I find, especially as women, it's like, what we want may either sound selfish or may seem trivial, or, you know, you can come up with all these things with like why what you want isn't actually like valid or good. Whereas I think we need to take some of that stigma out of like our desires. Like, why do we have to label some things as good or bad? I know a lot of people deal with this when they talk about like, oh, they want, I was speaking with another guest about like a lot of her clients come to her actually wanting more fame, but then that's like brings about this whole like ickiness to it. And then when you unpack it, it's like, but I want that fame because I want to be on a bigger platform so I can serve, or, you know, there's actually good things behind it, but we tear down what we want so much that I think it scares us to even go there.
Yep. You're absolutely right. I definitely, the core is, and I've learned this in my own life and just in the journey of therapy and, you know, my colleagues and my mentors, they say, Karla, at the core of everyone, man, woman, child, I don't care who it is, it's unworthiness. You feel unworthy of the things you want. And if we know ourselves, and if it's with a pure heart that you want the money, if it's with a pure heart, you want the fame and you want the stage and you want the platform, go for it. Screw anybody that tries to tear you down. If you feel guilty, if you feel selfish, that's just negative programming. That's the voice of, you know, we got to outwit that inner devil. It's that, not like the devil, like brimstone and fire, religious devil. It's just like, there's that voice in us. It's the limiting beliefs. And unfortunately, that's the voice that speaks first and it speaks loudest. And it's what we listen to, because who do we think we are? Like Marianne Williamson's beautiful quote, you know, who do we think we are to be beautiful and gorgeous and talented? Excuse me, who are you not to be, to shine? And one of my favorite authors who I'm kind of hip to now, Amanda Frances, I don't know if you're familiar with her, like Rich AF book.
No, I'm not.
You know, there's people that talk about living unapologetically and not making excuses or having to qualify for what they want or prove, like, I deserve this, right? She is so unapologetic. I adore her. I'm like, have such a girl crush on her right now. But it's just like allowing yourself to go there. For me, it showed up as guilt, so much guilt. Like, how dare you show up and look pretty, Karla? How dare you? You're going to make all the other people feel less than. And that's, again, like that quote from Marianne Williams, the deepest fear quote. To shrink our light, shrink ourselves, shrink our dreams to make other people feel uncomfortable and to not be too much, because then that's taking away from other people. It's that lack and scarcity mentality. I have to be small. I have to suffer because I want to be a good girl for some like imaginary God or force. You know, it's like the whole poverty is virtuous deal. You know, the more poor, the more humble, the more lowly, like not the real humility, but like the false humility. Like the more I shrink, it's like, I'll be a good person. It's like, there's nothing that's blasphemous actually, to hide your light and hide your gift and hide your beauty and hide your greatness, you know? So I don't know if that made sense, but.
Totally. No, but like, why is that such a big programming? I mean, among women, but among everyone.
Everybody.
Because I've had this said to me so much, like, Courtney, like, why are you playing small? And like, I downplay myself so much. You get an opportunity and then you like disqualify yourself. But then from the outside world, you know, my husband or someone will like look and be like, look at all the stuff you've done in your life. You are a badass. Like, own it. But we can't. Like, why do we struggle so much with owning our greatness?
Right. Because, okay, I have a thesis and it's evolving all the time. So I remember I had a woman, brilliant PhD psychologist. I was raised Catholic, love it, took what I like, leave the rest. And I always call it like West Coast Catholic, like California Catholics weren't like East Coast. It's like they had horror stories. God bless him. But mine was easy breezy, flip flops, and my priest didn't care. And so I had just such a beautiful introduction to ritual and connection with God and prayer and spirit. And it was never forced upon me. I was very lucky in that sense. And so I kind of just have my own spirituality from that. But back to the story of this psychologist. She was asking me questions just about, guilt and shame. And she goes, let me ask you a question. Did you grow up religious? I was like, yeah. She goes, was there a crucifix in your church? I said, yeah. She goes, what do you think that did? She's like, how long were you practicing? I was like, probably like good 20, 25 years of life. She goes, what do you think that did to your psyche to see a bloody human being hanging from a cross, reminding you every day of your guilt, and that it's because of you that they did that, and now you're forgiven? And at first I was like, I got really like prickly, like, I have like some religious trauma from other family, like, throwing religion as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So I was prickly about any attack or on, don't mess with my, Jesus. Right. But after that call, it was one of the most paradigm shifting moments of like, oh shit. Unconsciously, I believe that we all, no matter if you're religious or not, I don't care what you are, but Christianity, whatever denomination, deeply roots in our imagination this idea that you are bad and we made someone suffer. The ultimate, nails like the most horrendous, people just get off on the nastiness of how horrific it was. And it's like, I crack up when I was like in my 20s, like coming in all hungover after the club, like Sunday morning, like coming into the pew, like, oh, sorry, sir. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. Right. In my mind, like you're hanging, like, I'm such a bad person. I'm such an asshole. I'm just sitting here drinking my life away when you just totally like hung on a cross and like led your life. I'm so sorry. Right. And it's just like, we are taught that we made someone unconsciously maybe sacrifice, and that, to succeed in life, we have to suffer. It's like we forget the most important part of the resurrection. It's like that was one moment, but wasn't the whole point? The resurrection is like, why don't we have Jesus? Some churches do, like the resurrected Jesus, but I say a lot to say this is a big metaphor of we focus on the crucifixion and of the pain and of the guilt, and we miss the whole point of the freedom of the life of the resurrection of us, our spirit, and everything. And so that's at the core of it all, just like unworthiness in therapy, it's guilt as a human being, period.
Well, that guilt, I mean, I grew up in Southern California too. I don't live there now, but so I understand what you're saying about the California Catholics, but I didn't grow up with religion, but that guilt is there. What I do know is the Catholic Church. All my friends were Catholic. It's the only church I'd gone to. Some of my family were. And so, but to me, entering it felt very much so relegated, like it almost felt cultish, like you had to do this, and you had to follow these rules. Like I've always believed in, and I've always believed in something bigger and something greater. And I know there's a God or universe, whatever you want to call it. And at the core, even when you're talking about that messaging of guilt or that crucifixion, if you really break down almost any religion, and I'm not some religious scholar, just from what I can gather, it's like, we all come back to the same root messages. So it's just kind of like your perception of it. It's all comes back to the same thing. But I also think that we've gotten so far away with religion from like you said, what the real meaning is, like what is the point that we're supposed to take out of this. And I think that's what's also missing in this world a little bit, is like this faith in something greater than us, that we are here to live a life of purpose and service and to have something more, but we can enjoy it along the way. Like there's these pieces that we've kind of like let fall off, and just we latch onto this like, yeah, I need to sacrifice so much so I'm a good person. And does that actually make you a good person? Or is that just making you play the role or the facade of what a good person is?
you play the narrative of,
Yes.
I don't want to stand out. I don't want to be unapologetically happy. And so it's, the 2% rule. It's like, it's not a coincidence that 2% of people make the most money in the world. It's not a coincidence that 2% of people are the most successful in the world. It's not a coincidence that there's only 12 seats on a first class flight. Like, it's like, or, domestic, but because it's just a pattern of humanity that only 2% of people are willing or get it to break free from the majority. And it's in safety, right? In tribal safety that we don't want to stick out. It's not easy to be a 2% type of person in any room because you're not a part of the majority. You're not liked. Like, who the hell wants to do that? You get throwback. You get, people hating on you. People don't understand it. And so that's why you don't really see a lot of people divulging the secrets of the 2% because the 98% wouldn't get it anyway. It's like, that's why. And it's like not some secret society. It's just, they don't have the stamina and they would be talking to the wind.
Is that what it is? That we just want to fit in?
Of course. We don't want to be, we're afraid. We're afraid to be different. We're afraid to believe in something different. It's breaking free of the paradigms and the programming that we have. And we don't have faith. We don't want to change. We're wired for safety. We don't want that.
But what's funny is as much as we want to fit in, we put out that image that we are those 2%ers. I live in just like a normal neighborhood here in Tennessee. And it's like the houses aren't like, there's a lot of beautiful, amazing houses in my, in our community, but like, I'm just in a normal neighborhood and you go down the street and there's like a Lamborghini in a driveway. And there's like this, like, I think there's like an Aston Martin and like, there's these cars that's like, that car is actually worth probably more than your mortgage type of thing. And it's kind of like, we want to fit in, but then we put out the facade that we're that 2%ers. So like what gives? Cause that's like a kind of like a weird contradiction, I would say.
Right. And with that, see, to our minds, we can think like the person with the, McLaren or that car outside of their house, it's just like, but again, we don't know. Who knows? Who knows what that person is thinking or what, what facade they're giving or who the hell they are anyway. Right. And it's just like, there's nothing wrong with any of that. And I know you weren't saying that, but it's just like we can't get the form out here mixed up with the meaning we give it. It's like, I'm a huge student and fan of A Course in Miracles. I don't know if you are a fan of A Course in Miracles, but it's just, we get it twisted. We live from the outside in and we screw up and we confuse form with content, meaning we give everything, the meaning that it is to us based on our thoughts and our patterns. And so it can be confusing to roll down a street like in a mobile home park and see like, a iced out Bentley with rims. It's like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But at the same time, who cares? Maybe that person wants the car and not the house. It doesn't matter. And it's not like, it's not, it's not a judgment on them. Everyone should be able to have whatever they want to have. I just find it interesting that we put these things out there. It's like, we want to fit in. We want to be a part of the pack, yet we strive so much to be that 2%er in the room, but we're not willing to like, how does that work? We want to be that person and we don't. Like we want to show that we have that stuff, but we still want to fit in. There's this weird contradiction.
And that's when you suffer. Yeah. That's when you suffer. You got to go all the way in. You're either a part of the you're either going to break out completely. And some people stay in between. I certainly found myself there for years. You either believe and you don't challenge any status quo or the majority belief, or you fully go into this belief. And there's different people in each camp. There's great people in this camp, great people. There's buttholes and buttholes, right? There's all kinds of different people. when we try to, it's like, when they say, you have a podcast and all this. And when we talk about branding and who we are as a person and who you want to present yourself to be, it's like, well, I want everyone to like me. I want to be for everybody. It's like, if you try to be for everybody, you're going to be for nobody. It's like, we want to be vanilla. We want to be safe. It's like, even me, right? On my YouTube channel, it's like, but I don't want to say that. Like, I really believe that, but I would never say that because people wouldn't like it. It's just like, Karla, you're either going to go all the way in to your 2%, right? As a person, my full truth, or you're going to be the safe vanilla 98 and, police your words and not be too much for people. So, the macro is always the micro. It's like, who is Courtney at her 2%? Is she willing to be her 2% or is she still trying? And we all do that, right? There's nothing wrong with it. But I find myself like, oh shit, I might really turn some people off because if I show my 2%, like my secret top level of what I believe and who I am and what I'm diving into, it's like, I'm going to lose 98% of my, it's just like, well, Wayne Dyer said it best. You ain't going to win everybody. It's like, if you win half the people, you're winning.
I mean, that is huge. If anyone takes anything out of this podcast today is that 2%. What is your 2%? I think that's the best way to look at it. Like, we need to give ourselves our own baseline of what that 2% is, because, that person in the mobile home park with the iced out Bentley, that might be their 2%, like it seems weird to me, but who knows? Maybe they don't want like some real big foundational home. They want to be on the move. So, you never know what it is, but you are so right too. When you're trying to appease so many, and I've spent so much of my career in that space because like I worked in television. I worked in television for almost 20 years of my life, doing marketing and promotion, creating commercials for shows. And you're trying to bring in that broad audience and nothing ever works that way. I was literally watching this show with my husband last night because I did the launch of Arsenio Hall, his second launch, when his show came back. And so I worked really closely with him. And during that time, I realized, and we were watching something last night, a documentary about the different times. And Arsenio was a guest, and he was talking about how Black culture came into the neighborhoods in the 80s and 90s and how it kind of changed the voice. And I realized the reason why his show was so successful the first time around was because he was, like you said, unapologetically himself. He was pushing the boundaries. But when he came around this second time around, and he was talking about this in the show we were watching, he was talking about that he was having to push the executives to allow him to say the things he wanted to say or bring the guests on that he wanted to. And it literally changed the dynamic of TV at that time. So when he came back the second time around, I realized, I can't even remember the big time span between the two shows. I mean, it was like 15 years, 20 years between the two shows coming out. I realized nothing had changed. They brought him back on because they wanted to, they wanted to revamp a bygone like nostalgia. Yet they were still fighting him, not letting him be himself. They wanted to whitewash him. They wanted to appease everyone. They wanted to go to this audience, whereas like he was still dealing with that same kind of like, we have to make everyone happy. And his show flopped on the second time. And it should have done amazing because they should have just let him be him. And we need to do more of that. We need to unapologetically be ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And this analogy is just unfolding here, right? This is not something I've ever I speak an analogy, but when we're talking about that 2%, it's like, it's the self, right? The self, if you're familiar with parts work or IFS, Richard Schwartz is amazing in internal family systems. And he, we talk about self, and it goes into what we've been talking about this whole time. It's like, our authenticity. What do we want? Who are we? What is our deep connection? Why do we feel guilty? All this stuff. It's just like, there's self energy. It's self with a capital S. It's Courtney with a capital C, Karla with a capital K, whoever you're listening to. It's your deep core self that you only hide. It's like the 2% of you hide, and then the 98% the world sees. It's like, how do we flip that around and let 100% be fully authentic of that deep truth of your core beliefs, which you really want, unapologetically, not doing. It's like letting that out at 100 proof. And those are the people that get the most heat. They get the most pushback. They get the most hate, but yet they get the most success because deep down, the 2% of everyone else watching them is like, me too. I wish I could do that too. You know, when you hear these stories of like, you know, I gave it all up, and I love The Rock, my man, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You know, and he always talks about like, you know, I had $7 in my pocket, and everyone talks about their stories. It's like,
yeah,
we look up to these people, but when it's you with $7 in your pocket, it's not cute. It's scary. People love to listen to the stories, but when it comes down to it, when the, you know, rubber meets the road, it's like, oh my God, I would rather die than have to go through this pain. And it's not for the faint of heart. And so to be that full 2%, whatever, 100% of that little part of you, it will kill you, literally, spiritually. It'll kill who you are. You have to die to your old self. And if anybody's been through that, I was forced through it. I, you know, talk openly about, you know, I was addicted. I had anxiety, depression. I used alcohol to cope. And it was like, you know, most people walk around dead inside. I was definitely that. I was a zombie. And so it's like, if we want to rebirth, if we want to be that, you know, cocoon and be the butterfly and live our full life, it's like, it's a dark time. You're by yourself. It's a party of one in that cocoon. And like to stay in there and to really get all of the oldness off of you and do all of that work, and then to emerge as that butterfly. And it's an iterative process. You don't just do it once. It is the most scariest, most painful thing you can ever do. And that's why people don't do it. That's why it remains 2%. 2 out of 100 will do it.
It is 1,000, like it is the hardest thing you will ever do. It is lonely. It is scary. You have to, this is where that concept of faith comes into play, because you have to believe there's something on the other side, because you're going to walk that road for a while usually. My mentor is actually mentored Wayne Dyer, and we've talked very openly about this, and her, and what she talks about is, it's called like walking in the fire. I've been doing that for 2 years now. I'm not on the way out. I'm not out yet. Like, I know I'm not. Like, I'm still dealing with it. But you still have to wake up and know that there's something on the other side. And like you said, it is scary. It hurts. I use this term to her in one of our conversations, that it feels like I'm mourning a part of me. It doesn't mean that I didn't like that old version of me, but I just love this new version of me so much more that I'm willing to say goodbye to that. And you have to be able to get uncomfortable and go there. And she's like, I'm so happy you use those terms. It's like a death, that you're willing to mourn that person or grieve that person, because you do. You have to say goodbye to everything you were before to really blossom into this new version. And like I said, she calls it dancing in the fire. And that fire's freaking hot.
Yeah, it's like, if you don't know how to swim, if you know, say you're in the ocean and there's like buoys, like, you know, little floaty buoys, and it's just like, you want to get to that part of the ocean, you want to go farther out and explore, but you want to hold on to the buoy the whole time. It's like, no, you got to let go of this, and you got to swim. You got to swim in the open water where there's sharks and there's this and there's fear, and in hopes that you're going to get to that next buoy, right? And so getting uncomfortable, when you said that, it's like, oh my gosh. For me, I remember I had a woman tell me, like, she was like kind of clairvoyant, and I had been recommended her, and we had like a session, and she's like, you don't like, what did she say? You don't like pain, or you don't like pain. And I was like, what? I don't like pain. I was so offended in my mind, right? I was judging totally. I was like, this woman does not know me. I walk into pain. I put myself in painful situations. Hell, I'm like the queen of pain, right? But after that, I was like, what is she talking about? Because I was kind of like pushing back. And after I hung up, I was like, girl, she was talking about, you don't like to get uncomfortable. And I was like, oh, I don't. And who likes to get uncomfortable? But that's what it is. It's like, we want the life, we want the new life, but we don't want to go through the ugliness to get there. It's like, we want to show up pretty. We don't want to look like a mess. We don't want to look stumbling. You know, when it comes to, you know, starting something new, we don't want to be seen with no followers or no likes. We don't want to be seen working on ourselves or falling flat on our face, or, you know, having a panic attack at a Toastmasters speech meeting, right? But you have to go through that, walk through the fire to get to, you know, what do the Marines say? Or what is it? The Navy SEALs, you know, everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. We all want to go to heaven, but we don't want to die or something. Anyways, yeah, we want that, but we don't understand. We highly underestimate what it takes to live the life that we dream of.
Well, even if we want to live that life that we dream of, it just made me think about it when we're talking about that butterfly analogy. And I've had that explained to me, you know, and literally my daughter's obsessed with butterflies right now. So for her birthday, we got her, you know, one of those things where you get to see the butterflies go from a caterpillar to, you know, a butterfly and release them. And, you know, it is ugly. It is ugly when they go into that cocoon and they break out. There's nothing pretty about it. And then my husband's cousin just had a baby like last week. And, you know, we're seeing some of the birth pictures sent our ways. And I'm just thinking, God, you know, as beautiful as that rebirth is, it is ugly to look at. And we have to think about that. If we want to get that 2%er life, if we want to get what we want, how we started this conversation, we have to embrace the ugly. And embracing the ugly also means getting uncomfortable, but it also means getting vulnerable and being truthful about what we are going through. Like you said with The Rock talking about the $7 in his pocket. You know, we hear about that like after the fact. Usually we've all heard Mel Robbins talk about her rock bottom story, you know, and you hear that after people hit their success point. Right. And so it's like, okay, well, yeah, you went through that, but look at you now. But what about us that are going through it now when you're actually in the shit? I mean, that's where I think we can really connect and really make a change is by sharing these stories with one another. I'm a storyteller, getting vulnerable, helping people see you when you're in it, because then it's like, okay, I can walk with you and go through that. And it's not just like this fairy tale that you made it to the other side. It's like, we have to be honest about what we're going through in the moment. And that's hard. Just as much as getting uncomfortable is hard, getting vulnerable is hard. But these are such huge parts of growth.
Yeah. Show you're messy. Like, get comfortable falling flat on your face. I remember when I wanted so deeply to have a platform. I wanted so deeply to speak and to really connect with people. And I was so judgmental and so resistant to social media my whole life. Like, I'm 40 now. And I remember when, you know, MySpace came up and Facebook, and it was all no to me. You know, I didn't judge anybody that had it, but I was like, I want nothing to do with that. Oh my God, I don't want to put myself out there. Like, what do I have to say? Right. And, you know, and then it did turn into judgment. Like, why do we care what someone's having for breakfast? Like, I judged people so hard because I saw a lot of the fakeness, right? A lot of the facade. And I was like, I hate when people are fake. I hate that. And I had a coach and a mentor tell me one time, Karla, do you think perhaps because you hate being fake and you hate being, I was like, oh, damn. And so she's like, you have to stop being selfish. Like, if this is something you want, you feel like you have a message and all the things that you study, you want to share, you're being quite selfish. Like, it's not about you. If you want to start that YouTube channel, start it. Who cares what anybody thinks of you? Just share your message and share what you're learning. And I was like, damn. So it's been 3 years. It's like my 3-year social media anniversary of putting myself out there for the first time. And so it's like, I lost my train of thought, but you had mentioned, what were we saying? I had a point here.
Getting vulnerable and showing ourselves getting vulnerable as we're going through it.
Thank you. And so when I started, I was like, I wanted to come across, obviously, with my best foot forward. I wanted to present, I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to like me, right? I wanted to be good. And I thought, I remember sitting there, and I had gone through the 12 steps of AA and any recovery, the 12 steps, you know, it's like you're at your amends. Well, first, the fearless moral inventory, step 4, of really looking at character defects and all this. But step 9 of like making amends and just being honest and, you know, forgiveness and asking for forgiveness and all this, you know, righting your wrongs. And I was just like, oh my God, am I going to be fully authentic with my message? Am I going to talk about my dream? Am I going to talk about my DUI? Am I going to talk about my, you know, being in jail? Am I going to talk about getting drunk? Am I going to talk about being, you know, 30 pounds overweight? Am I going to, it's like, and I thought, I just heard a voice. I was like, either you go all in, sis, or you don't go at all, right? You're just going to be fake. And so I have been happily, unapologetically, like, I don't make it more of my message, because I think a lot of people can make that, you know, their message. I use it in a way, and I found myself hiding it. Just like last weekend, I was like, I think I'm missing I feel like people are tired of it and they're like, no, Carl, like I get messages all the time. Like, how do I find a sponsor? How do I do this? And I'm like, fuck. Like with all of the, holidays coming up, you know, people drink more. We're around family members. That's how I used to cope. And I get it. And it is so destructive. I mean, not everybody, some people can drink happily, hats off to them, but it, you know, alcohol for me is obviously, you know, alcoholism runs in my family and it's the most destructive, but most socially acceptable thing. And I think a lot of people feel shame to have family members, have broken families, hiding, you know, the problems that other people have or the problems they have. And how do we even know we have a problem? You know, every commercial says it's okay and it's cool and it's sexy to drink, but it's just like, I myself didn't know I had a problem. No one would have thought. Like, you know, she'd be looking cute always. And I had a degree and I was higher education and I was successful and I was traveling. But like, I was like, am I an alcoholic? Do I have a problem? Like, and it's just like, only you can diagnose yourself, by the way. Like an alcoholic is not like a medical diagnosis. It's like it's a personal thing that you come to truth about yourself. It's like, do I depend on this substance or any substance outside of myself to cope? Do I turn to this behavior, which makes me feel like dookie after I do it, because I already feel like crap? And so it's a very personal process, but being vulnerable, like you said, all the way around full circle, sharing your truth, sharing the messy, sharing the ugly, sharing the struggle, people relate to that. And we need more of that. So I strive to do that. And I'm in a process of doing that more myself.
Yeah. I mean, 1,000%. I'm with you on that social media thing. I mean, I've started platforms multiple times throughout my life and my career. And it's one of those things. It's like, you have to show up authentically. Otherwise it doesn't work, but it's still kind of like, you know, you have people looking or watching and it's like you temper what you say or do. Even when I started this business and the podcast, I've been pretty open and authentic about on myself. But like when I first started my company and first started showing up on social media, you know, I didn't want to talk about spirituality because I didn't want people to think I was crazy. You know, I didn't want to talk about things. I started talking about the home. I started talking about, we need to bring intention into the home. This is how we transitioned into intentional living because I wanted to like tiptoe my way. And then finally I was just kind of like, who am I kidding? Let's just be honest. I've been studying this stuff for years. Like I've been drawn to this for years. Like let's just start talking about it. But then I realized also, you know, what kept being pointed out to me. And we talked about this before, you know, I come from television where everything is so produced, so perfected. That is so ingrained in me. It is hard sometimes to show up authentically because you edit, you look at it. I look at, this is, you know, the lighting's off here, or this is out of sync here, you know? So with that producer mindset and that perfectionist in my past, well, I don't even know if it's in my past. It's still here. We tend to do that. And people that are perfectionists also, and who don't want to show up vulnerably, also have substance abuse issues, I think, a lot. And even to your point of drinking, you know, my husband did a challenge 75 hard a couple years ago, and he loved the results so much by not drinking that he was just like, I like who I am when I'm not drinking. So he stopped drinking. And not because he had a problem. He just liked the way he showed up. And that has become an issue with people. People don't want to accept that. Now that he's not drinking, and I've chosen not to drink as much. It doesn't mean like the other night I had a couple glasses of wine at dinner. That was the first time I had a drink in probably 6 to 8 months. And I didn't like the way I felt afterwards. So it's just like, I don't do it as much anymore. And like you, I was successful. I had the degrees. I was doing everything right. But boy, did I have a drinking problem. So, you know, it's weird how we like judge people for these choices, and especially the negative choices or positive choices when we switch. Like people don't want to accept that. People don't want to accept that you're not drinking or not partaking.
Courtney, people don't want to heal.
Yeah.
People talk. We don't want to heal. We want to hold on to our pain and our struggle. It's like when you were talking about, you know, the TV and I was afraid to talk about spirituality or God, same, right? I was like, I don't want to be the only one. I was like, even afraid, like tiptoe, like universe, God, whatever you want to call it. It's like, I don't give up. I call it God, kiss my ass. I don't care. Whatever. You do you, boo. Right? It's just like, we find ourselves, it's like to be the truth, that 2%, the 2%er, it's like, people don't like the truth. We don't like
No.
the truth. I don't like the truth. I like illusion. I like good lighting. I like curated. I like edited. I like, and so do other people. We don't like the truth. We like illusion. We don't like sobriety. We like inebriated. We don't like sober in every way. Sober of mind, sober of body, sober of whatever. We like to be drunk. We love to be high. We love to be numb. We don't like truth. We're addicted to illusion. We are not, and we're leaning into it, right? Podcasts like yours, I'm trying to put that out there. And anybody listening here, you're on our page, right? You want the truth because illusions are like mirages. We keep going after them, whatever it is, outside or inside, and we never get there. And we're like, what the heck? Am I doing something wrong? Is this a cosmic joke? I must have bad karma. It's like, believe in the truth, like you beautifully described with the butterfly and the babies. It ain't cute, but it's the only way to truth. That's how you truly get to, right? The truth is such a free. Hello.
Yeah. Well, why? Why do we like the illusion so much? Because the illusion is so empty.
Courtney, this is so big. Do you know what the illusion is? The grand illusion, as the Course in Miracles says, it's life. It's our whole experience here. This is an illusion, and quantum physics is proving it. And it's really far out there, so I don't expect anybody to believe. And I'm, whatever. But like, this is all a dream, according to A Course in Miracles, and according to a lot of quantum physics scientists and all that. It's like, this is all an illusion. And if we didn't believe in it, we wouldn't be here. Period. And we don't want to not be here. We don't want to accept the fact that this is an illusion or that this world of duality is our continued illusory belief that we can be separate from the oneness of God. And so we like our separate self. I wanted to experience, it's like the ultimate prodigal son experience. We ran away from oneness because I wanted mine and me and Karla. I want my own name and my own stuff and my own thing. I love everybody, but I'm here and you're there. This is my family, your family. And that's duality. It's separateness. That is not our nature. But to keep up this illusion of duality and separateness, illusion, this whole experience of life is a dream, is an illusion. And if we take a stand, which I think we're all doing slowly but surely, to the awareness of the oneness that we truly are, right? We all want to be one and one with God. It's like, do you know what that means? It means giving up yourself as you know it, your individual thoughts, your individual it's like, I don't want that. I don't want to be like that over there. That person's a murderer. It's like, this is so huge. It's beyond our minds. Like, we're not even there. A lot of people do, like, we think we're going to vibrate off this earth. Like, you're so far from it, honey. Like, no one ain't vibrating. If you're here in this 3D world, in this physical world of duality, you're here because you don't want oneness, but everyone talks about non-dual, like, I'm oneness. It's like, no, you ain't, honey. Because if you were, you wouldn't be here. Because this is a world of duality, And so whatever, that's my rant. But it's so much bigger that's why we like illusions, because we are in a grand illusion. We love it. We're addicted to it. It's all we know. It's like fish in water. We don't know how to live without our illusions.
Wow. I mean, I'm just like stepping into quantum physics because it's fascinating to me, and this whole like time and energy. Well, like, I believe in all of this stuff. It's like past lives, this life, simultaneous timelines, like, money is like, we can just go down a rabbit hole, and it is the most fascinating thing in the world. And we're like living in a matrix. And I literally just watched Interstellar the other day for the very first time. I don't know why I've never watched it. And I'm just like, my mind's getting blown this way. I'm like,
I need to rewatch it.
Like, I mean, you look at movies and things, and it's like, there is this, to me, this is all the truth. People aren't making this stuff up. But even talking about that, I've had this thought a lot. Like, well, first of all, my very, very first mentor in whole spirituality realm, she used to use that as an analogy. Like, we would do meditations where we were the video game. Like, and you think of it as like you're, these little controllers, and we're just like these little players. And then all I can think of, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately. So obviously this is a message coming through us, is that we're talking about it is that I've been thinking about the game The Sims. I used to love that game, being God, playing these little characters and getting to dictate their life. And it's like, you get to make this person do this, and you get to make this person die, and you get to make this person happy or sad or whatever. It's like, we are all little Sims. And I just have been thinking this, like, who up there in the heavens is making us like do all these little random things, and they're enjoying it, and we're just the ones like playing out our roles.
And this is a huge topic, by the way, and I know it can be, for me, it's like, it challenges us. It challenges, just like that woman who said, did you grow up with a crucifix, right? It's like, our beliefs are like our limbs. Our beliefs. And so when someone tries to challenge or cut off one of our limbs or challenge our limbs, it's like we feel defensive right away, protective. And so big conversations like this can really stir us up. But I invite anybody who feels like that just to, take what you like and leave the rest, but try to stir it around. I remember hearing on a podcast, this, man talking about, this is all an illusion. There's no God. He was like an agnostic or whatever. And it really, I was like, you know what, I'm going to listen to him. And what if, right? And I rolled with it, and I was sick to my stomach. Like, our beliefs truly have a physical effect on us. Yeah. And so I rolled around with it for a couple of days, because what he said was there was stuff resonating. And then after all of that, rolling around with it, sitting with the discomfort, I came back to, no, I do believe in God. But I do see what he's saying. I don't agree with him, but to be able to sit with that, like the Stoics talk about, being able to objectively sit with someone else's point of view without taking it on or being defensive or having to fight it. It's like, that's his belief. I was able to listen to it fully without judgment or but then I came to my own conclusion after, and it actually was stronger. My own belief, like, you know what? I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I rolled that around. But yeah, like you said, these whole big beliefs about, what science is, the Sims and all of that. It's huge. And when you said, who's up there, making us do this, I think that there's nobody. Like, I don't, like, when we talk about non-duality, and this is the biggest, like, the farthest I'll go. But if we think about our universe, the entire universe, the world, the planets, other planets, aliens, everything, whatever you believe, infinity, that in itself is an idea. Okay. That's the whole universe is duality. The whole universe, everything within the universe is duality. Outside of the universe is oneness and God. God has nothing to do with this universe. Period. Isn't that wild? That was so wild for me. And no one has to believe it, but this is truly, it's like, God is one. This whole universe is duality. They don't mix. When we're ready to be one, we can leave. God is not going to come to duality. We have to go to oneness. So the radical teaching of A Course in Miracles, which a lot of people don't even get because we don't want to get, is God has nothing to do with this world, this universe. But God is in our mind. God is in us. God is in us. I believe in God. God is in us. But it's like, but Karla, what about the beautiful flowers? And God created this world. I'm coming to the realization that no, I did. I can't just believe, I believe the beautiful sunsets. I created the beautiful sunsets, but I didn't create the Hitlers and the nastiness of this world. And that's when people say, how does God let this happen? God didn't let this happen. God has nothing to do with it. We do. But what about my beautiful baby and my child? And God made the flower. God is not in the flower. God did not make the flower, but God is in my mind. And if that's what I see in the flower, it's not because it's in the flower. It's because it's in my mind. This is wild, and I get it, but it's so trippy, but it answers all the questions to when we believe in spirituality and the goodness, and we try to spiritualize this universe and this world and think it's so beautiful. But then we say, well, then why do people die of cancer? Yeah. How can you believe both? Because God ain't got nothing to do with it. But God is real. I believe God is real, and God is outside of this whole shit show.
Wow. That's interesting, because I'm thinking about it. And the fact is, when you say that, I've had this conversation a lot, because I believe we all have God within us as well. Like I call it, like I imagine it as like this pilot light. that little spark. We all have that spark of God in that little pilot light. I love the idea that like when we're ready to be one, we can go. And that's when we leave. But then that is that question that I've always said is like, we sign these soul contracts. It's talked about a lot in the spiritual world. We sign these soul contracts and we have these lessons and we come down here to evolve more and learn and all these different things. Sounds beautiful and great. And I subscribe to that. I believe that 1,000%. I just had someone do a small human design reading on me, blew my mind.
Oh, human design! I use it in my therapy.
Oh, fascinating. And I didn't even get the full thing. She was just on the podcast and she did like a quick
one
on
the
fly. And I was like,
are you a projector?
Sacral? No, I'm a sacral generator too. I don't know. Whatever it is, I don't know enough about it. Like, I'm like, oh, I got to dive into this. This is cool.
I'll do a reading on you for free. Let's do it.
Oh my goodness, let's do it. But thank you. Yes. But what I'm thinking of is, so like if we're signing these soul contracts and we're coming down and we're learning, and like, so for my human design, my thing is all about finding your voice, helping other people find their voice.
Your hell yes or your hell no, girl.
Yeah. And then coming from a place of love and bringing this love, which I'm kind of like, oh, that's interesting. But why would we ever sign a soul contract to come be in the Middle East right now, or be that person, or be Hitler, or like, why would we ever sign these? So that's
a part of the whole illusion. It's a part of remember the universe, how I said?
Yes.
We create all of this. We believe in past lives when we die. It's like, we're still in this universe. We're still in this dream. It's a dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. To die and to be born, it's all a part of this world of duality and this concept of duality. All of it. When we go into oneness, there's nothing. God is, period. That's go ahead.
What was the movie that was the dream within a dream within a dream? Was it a Christopher Nolan? I don't know. It was like another like interstellar. Inception. Yeah, like another like.
Yes. But that is our experience, because it was like a mind blow when I thought like, well, what about when I die and I reincarnate? Do I go to God? No, I'm still within the idea of the universe that I could be. It's a forgiveness. I believe that it's all about forgiving. There's a great book. It's called The Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard. It blew my sockets out. It's not for everybody. Take what you like, leave the rest. You probably think I'm a nutbag, but this is my 2%. This is my 2%. But he talks about everything you said, soul contracts, all of it. It's all a part of the illusion, all of it. Okay. And so the whole goal is to forgive everything. Forgive ourselves for wanting to be away from oneness. Forgive ourselves for wanting to be separate from our brothers and sisters. Forgive ourselves for judging. Forgive ourselves for creating this grand, crazy projection that is the universe. Forgive ourselves. And once we forgive, don't feel guilty about it. Forgive it all. It will disappear. And we will be with oneness. We will be with God. And there's a great poem about there's this river flowing, this beautiful river, feeling so beautiful on it. And it's getting more fearful as it's going to open up into the ocean and lose itself into the ocean. And it says, what am I going to be? I'm not going to be a river anymore. I'm going to be the one vast ocean. Who will I be? I won't no longer be a river. And that's what we're afraid of. I don't know how to be one. I only know how to be two. I only know how to be separate from you, Courtney. That's literally all I know how to be. Your family's over there in Tennessee. Mine's here in California. And do I really want to be one with you? Because if I did, I would disappear. No, I don't want that. And that's why I'm here.
Wow.
And until I'm ready to give that up, because we're like addicts. It's like someone with a drink. It's like, well, give me that drink. No, I want it. Well, if you don't have a problem, give the drink up. Yeah. No, I don't have a problem. You have a problem. I only drink like one glass of wine every 5 years. It's like, it doesn't matter. One glass of wine every 5. If you want to be one, you're going to be one. But if you want to be separate and in this dual world of illusions, just admit it, baby. We're addicted. We're addicted to duality. I am addicted to being special and one and different and successful and everything. And you know what? I forgive myself for it. I admit, but I'm going to try to continuously become more aware of the oneness that is. Forgive myself for wanting to be separate, for judging everybody, anybody, myself, and wanting to be separate than God, from God. That's the goal.
So here's an interesting question. we've been talking about this podcast, and a lot of the focus is on understanding who we are authentically, who we truly are, which is very individual. It's very we come back to that duality. I don't want to be you. I don't want you to be me. We need to be our separate. We're trying to understand this authentic version of ourselves, who we really are. Is the real authentic self that oneness? Is that real authentic self, that God self?
Yep. Yes. And we're afraid of it. We're horrified. We're horrified, Courtney. That's why we can't get there. And not to make anybody feel guilty. It's like, we can do our best. We're in this dream right now of separateness. And we can either, as the Course in Miracles says, use the voice of the Holy Spirit, which is of God, which is of oneness, the thought, because our mind is the only tool we have here in this dream. It's our only remote control. It's our only remote control. So there's a mind can either be led by the voice of the Holy Spirit or of God, or by the ego and of duality. So we do have control in the dream, meaning we can control our mind and our thoughts. And so those people who have like that ascetic lifestyle, like they let go of everything and then they like whip themselves, or, that's not asceticism. Like we are, this body, this nasty body, this sinful body. It's like, no, it's not about that. It's forgiving the fact that this is even here. And it's just like, loving everything about it and using a right-minded, loving, forgiving mind of the voice of the Holy Spirit in this dream. Because we're in this dream, but the step one is waking up to noticing, like the Buddha, we're in a dream. This is all an illusion. Okay. We live in a world of duality. But the next step is, okay, well, while I'm here, it's just like when we have lucid dreams, like we wake up in the dream, we're like, oh my God, I could fly. I could go here. I could go here. It's like, step one, realize this is all an illusion, which is not easy because we don't want to believe that. That's really hard. And you don't have to. But step one, awakening to the knowing this is a dream. Step two, knowing the only power you have in the dream comes from your mind. Am I going to listen to the voice of the Holy Spirit and truth and forgiveness, or of the ego, judgment, separateness?
Wow.
And
I
just
feel like we can do another couple hours in just that. Oh my goodness. This has been really, really fascinating. Like I said, when we started, I never know where these conversations are going to go. And it's my favorite part of this podcast, because I love when we get into these conversations and I'm just like, we don't know. It's so crazy. It's so crazy to think of, but I love all these different possibilities we are talking about, and just opening up our mind to the illusion. I love it. it. Thank you so much for that. How do we get in touch with you and work with you? Because this is just fascinating stuff.
Right. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. Please don't think I'm weird. Actually, if you do, that'll be great. But I'm an eternal student, and what I love to do is show up and just share. And so on Instagram, TikTok, it's just my name, Karla Elizondo. YouTube is my jam. I just hit 800 followers this morning. I was so excited. So YouTube, Karla Elizondo, you can just look it up. What else? I'm a certified coach at the Napoleon Hill Institute. I love Napoleon Hill's teachings and his success philosophy. So if you're into personal development, he is just the grandfather. Every single personal development person out there, gets his, and he got his teachings. He was a big student of James Allen, which is As a Man Thinketh. And, he was quite a spiritual man. And I really adore that, because I think, and Bob Proctor used to say all the time, if you do not address the spiritual aspect of personal development, you're not going to get anywhere, because it's half the game. But so yeah, I'm a coach. I do one-on-ones. I'm a therapist, but I'm really moving more into the coaching. So we have programs. All my links are on my link trees and all of that sort of thing. I'm newer to human design. I love incorporating human design into my work. So yeah, I do it all. I love it. I'm always growing. I'm always learning. And I love to help people. And what I love about human design is, you find out your energy type, and more importantly, your incarnation cross, which really is, it doesn't tell the future, but it tells you what you're really here to do, what your gifts are. And mine is to direct and guide people. I have such a gift, and I've always had that. So when you read your human design, you're like, I knew it, darn it, I knew it. But I was afraid to step into that. And I'm also a reflector, which is I reflect people, and I can see you don't know how you know that wisdom, but you just know it because you feel that. And so with, being a reflector, being able to reflect back to you, right? I do that with my clients. And they're like, wow, how'd you know that? I was like, I'm just reflecting back to you what I see and what I hear. And also with that incarnation cross of like guiding and directing people, it's like I'm in the perfect profession. And so I would love to help anybody who's interested in that.
Goodness. Well, I'm going to put all your information in the show notes, and so you're easy to find. But thank you so much. I loved our conversation today, and I can't wait to talk again.
For having me. Yes, thank you so much.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Karla Elizondo, for such a fun, big, enlightening conversation all about this world we're living in, the illusion, the duality, the reality, whatever you want to think about it. If you want to follow along with Karla or get information of how to work with her, I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you'll find our books, our courses, and everything else we have going on. I can't wait to talk to you soon. Bye.